Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, The Flow Space. I am so excited to have you here today. I'm actually really excited for today's episode. Really quickly before I get into it, I do just want to explain, I'm in the middle of recording a bunch of different videos right now. I haven't even edited them yet, so I'm not sure which order everything is going to get posted in, so I'm not sure if I explained this already yet. But I kind of posted and ghosted when it came to my first video. I was like, oh my gosh, I have a YouTube channel, and then just disappeared. But I didn't take into consideration how much different the editing process and uploading process is going to be for videos over 10 minutes because my first one was a little bit shorter. And it's definitely a little bit of a learning curve, but I'm getting there, and I think I figured it all out, so I am just working on getting everything going. So I just wanted to explain that, but I do want to get into what I'm going to be talking about today, and I'm so excited again to have you here with me. Today I'm feeling really inspired to kind of get into why we're even here, and I know I kind of covered it a teeny bit in my first video, and then I also covered it a little bit when I talked about which kind of content I'm going to be posting, but I want to get down to a very personal level, and because I know not everybody on here knows me or knows my story, and I want to explain what led to this moment right here. Why am I in my own little pole studio in my home garage recording a YouTube/podcast, who knows, but I do want to explain the story of kind of how I got on this journey and where it led me. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that now. So for those of you who don't know, I actually just got into content creation in a bigger way this year in March. And that's really when I started intentionally posting outside of my comfort zone with my workouts. But I also started posting really personal stories and getting really raw and vulnerable online about my past experiences, some of my childhood traumas, and just some things that I've dealt with that I had a really difficult time with as I've grown up and gone on this journey of life. And I want to share some of that today because it's really important and really relative to why I'm sitting in this seat right now and why I think it's so important to share these messages and to speak and to have a platform, because I know for a fact I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for some of these things, if it weren't for this journey, if it wasn't for the things that I'm trying to teach other people. I hated myself growing up. I hated myself. It actually breaks my heart to even think about it or to talk about it, because I envisioned myself as a young girl, and I would never, ever want any young girl to feel the way that I felt about myself, about herself, ever. I used to literally cry myself to sleep at night and pray to God that I could wake up looking like somebody else, being somebody completely different. And where I am now is such a huge contrast to that, because I love myself, I love my life, I love being here, and it's heartbreaking, but it's also so inspiring to think that at one point in my life, I genuinely didn't want to be here. I had no interest in moving forward. I didn't see the point. And now every single morning I wake up and this is my natural emotion. This is my natural being in the world, because I am so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to just be alive and to be myself. I'm so grateful to be myself, and I wasn't always. I wasn't at all. I think I had thought that I had hit a rock bottom during the pandemic, and I had resurfaced a lot of my childhood traumas. I had something really traumatic happen to me in a bar on a night out. A tale as old as time, unfortunately, for women. I think that I was drugged that night and taken advantage of, and there were things that had to happen after as a result of that, and it was a really hard time. It was weeks before my graduation. I was graduating college, but my whole senior year of college was a little bit of a blur. I was drinking all the time. I was doing drugs. I was basically doing anything that I could get my hands on to not feel. And this is because I was really angry and starting to feel really angsty about life in general. I was in college for a degree that I knew I really didn't want to pursue anymore, but I felt really trapped. I had just spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and also took out student loans to obtain a piece of paper to work in a field that isn't what I thought it was at all. And that was really heartbreaking for me because I have always just had this like very romanticized vision of life, like always. And that's something that I've actually had to learn to deal with and kind of curb about myself, because not everything is this grand romantic story. But for me, I was feeling at that time like, oh my God, like, is this my life? Like, I grew up in the same town. I barely traveled. Like, I'm going to be this boring job. Like, I'm going to be stuck here forever. Like, is this my life? I don't even like my job. Like, it was just so against everything that I had grown up believing and wanting for myself. Like, I refused to marry somebody I didn't love. I refused to work in a field that I didn't, because I've watched adults in my life do this. I've watched adults in my life settle because it's more comfortable than it is to find what you're really looking for. And I had realized very quickly that's the path I'm going down right now. So when I had realized that, I was really feeling discontent. I was just feeling anxious, unsettled, and my friends and I had we were all in the same boat and feeling a lot of different things. I also think it's hard to just be a person in your early 20s. It's really hard to be a woman in your early 20s. There's so much going on. And so I didn't really know how to process. I didn't know how to cope. I was feeling very alone all the time, which isn't something I shared with a lot of people. I had moved out of my parents' house and moved into a basement studio apartment of a family member, so I wasn't completely alone, but I just felt very isolated. And I think a lot of it had to do with what I was going through, and I was starting to realize the true effects of living in the household that I lived in. It was a very dysfunctional situation. I don't really want to get into the details of it, but it was really heavy to be there, and I think leaving was the realization of like, oh shit, like I have to start processing what the fuck just happened there. And also processing at the same time, like I said, realizing that I'm growing up very quickly. I'm going down these life paths, and I don't really know if this is the path for me. And so now I'm drinking, I'm doing drugs, I'm doing anything to escape this life that I've created for myself because I didn't like it. And I didn't have the self-awareness yet or the tools to really know that I was creating that life for me. I was creating my surroundings. I was really perpetuating this story of self-hatred, which is bizarre because I would have told you I loved myself. This subject is always weird for me because I genuinely do love myself, even in my darkest moments. So it took me a long time to heal that childhood wound of not wanting to be myself. And then I have what I call ugly duckling syndrome. So like I was really an awkward, silly looking child, and then like ninth grade-ish, it kind of grew into myself, grew into my body, my face. My teeth got fixed. I used to have really bad buck teeth. I had braces for 5 years. So I think when I became a little bit more attractive maybe to the general public, I definitely had this huge like confidence boost. And I would have told you that I did love myself because I did finally start to find myself beautiful and all of that. But on a deeper level, again, like I didn't have the tools, the self-awareness yet to be able to dig deeper and say like, I don't love myself because everything that I'm doing, I'm operating out of a place of needing external validation. And I didn't realize that at the time. So even fast forward now to my college years, like I am going out. I have a core group of girlfriends and that I met during this time that I absolutely love and adore. We are close to this day. In my wedding party, love them to death, so I'm not referring to them at all. But most of the people I was surrounding myself with didn't care about me, and I knew that, and I wanted so badly, again, to feel validated and to feel like part of the crowd. And even that, like knowing that I'm not really, I'm somewhere where I don't belong and I don't fit in, and I felt like it was so visible. And that's something that I carried with me my whole life. Like I just always felt like I never really fit in, no matter where I was. I'm mixed. I'm half white, half black. I don't know the black side of my family. I don't know my father, my biological father at all. So I only know the white side of my family. So I've never really felt like I fit in there. And then I always ended up in these places that I just always felt like the odd one out. When I went to dance classes when I was younger, I always felt like I just didn't fit in. I didn't look like everybody else. I didn't act like everybody else in my family. I felt like everyone else was more outgoing and funny and, you know, like class clowny type of energy. And I was just this shy, quiet, like didn't talk. When we were going out, same kind of thing. Like I felt like everybody had this certain look and this certain vibe, and I was trying so hard to fit into it, and it was making me so sad because I didn't. And I felt so different my whole life. I just felt like I don't fit in here, I don't fit in here, I don't fit in here, I don't even look like my family. Like, where do I belong? And it was really hard to navigate. And so now I'm feeling super lonely. I'm drinking, I'm doing drugs. And then the pandemic hit and the world literally shut down, which was such a weird place to find myself in because I have worked for as long as I can remember. So when I was 17 or 18, I had my first job. When I was 18, my senior year of high school, I was working 2 jobs. Working full-time, like right out of high school, even though I was student teaching and going to school. Like I was always working, always super busy. And then all of a sudden, like there was nothing, which was crazy. It was a complete 180 because I was going from keeping myself so busy. I was at a job that I really hated, but I spent a lot of my time there because it was something to do. If I wasn't at work, I was drinking, I was smoking, I was getting high, I was doing something. And then all of a sudden there was nothing. There was no hanging out with friends. There was no going to the store. There was no working. And I was like, holy crap. Like this is really hard. And so to go back to something I had mentioned in the beginning. So I graduated college, right? And this had happened, I would say, so obviously I graduated in like, what is that, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So about 8 months after I graduated. So I had gone through that traumatic experience of what happened to me in the bar, and that had resurfaced some really intense memories and childhood trauma that really kind of sent me through like the darkest period of my life. And I, at the time, so like I said, I really thought that was the darkest period of my life at the time, but I'm gonna keep going with the story. So the pandemic comes and the world shuts down, and at first it's really, really hard, like really hard. I am struggling. I am actually sleeping until like 3 p.m. every day, like eating and then going back to bed. Like it was crazy. The depression in the beginning was really real. And then I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, I don't have anything to do. I went from like, I don't have anything to do to like, I don't have anything to do. Like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Because like, who wants to work? And I'm getting paid to not work for the first time in my life. Like, I've been begging for this, like, please, somebody. And for the first time in my life, I'm like, okay, I don't have to work. Amazing. And I took it as a really good opportunity to heal. So I have been into spirituality since I was 18 years old. I started collecting crystals, doing like all of that stuff throughout a number of years. So at this point in my life, I am 24. So I've been doing it now for like 6 years. I know the tools, and I'm like, you know what? I have the time. I can meditate. I can be with myself. And I did. Like, I literally started doing that. I was going to, I lived right behind me were woods. Like there was a trail in the woods. I would spend hours. I would pack a backpack, like freaking Dora the Explorer, and go in that woods for hours. And I would write, I would read, I would meditate, I would listen to music. I actually started dancing again during the pandemic with the rise of TikTok. That was the first time that I had started dancing actually as an adult again. And it was after the pandemic that I first went to an adult hip hop class and then finally found pole dancing. So the pandemic was like a really healing time for me. And if you have been following me for a while, then maybe you know, I started a podcast actually during the pandemic, and I was talking about a lot of these things and healing and all of these different journeys. But what I didn't realize at the time is that was only round one. And I didn't have the self-awareness yet. I couldn't reflect on it yet because it was in the moment, but I used to actually script my entire podcast episode. I think I only have like 3 or 4. This is a lot of work to script your entire podcast episodes. But like notebook, like literally word for word, and I would just read it. Like it was very inauthentic in that way. It was my actual words, it was my actual thoughts, but I didn't have the self-confidence yet to just get on here and start talking. I actually barely talked. Like this is a new version of myself that I had to kind of really unlock. Like I used to be very in my head. I'm an amazing writer. I love writing, I love reading, but like actually verbalizing words is not something that had come naturally to me. It actually wasn't until almost 2 years ago I had somebody that was working for me tell me that the way that I speak and the way that I use my words is actually really inspiring. And then that same day, somebody else that works for me told me that I really know how to lead the room. And I was going to start a podcast then. I think this was not like the spring that just passed, but the one before, right? No, it was last spring because I don't know what I'm talking about. I think it was last spring. But anyway, I was going to start a podcast then, and like I was planning my wedding and things were just so busy, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have a voice now. And this is really inspiring. I'm going off on a tangent. I forgot what I was talking about before. Yes, so I would literally script my entire podcast episodes out, and it just, what I did, like I said, what I didn't realize at the time is that was just the beginning of me starting to feel better. And what I didn't know is that as soon as the world reopened and, I went back to work, I went backwards like 10 steps. 10 steps back from where I was before. I felt like I had all of this time to myself. I had come to so many conclusions. I had finally started to get a taste of who I am and what I want from the world, and then just like that, you're back to your 9 to 5. I can't even say 9 to 5 because I work retail. You're back to your retail job where everybody's mean to you, but now you have all of these COVID restrictions, so everybody was super mean. It was a really intense time to be working, actually. I don't think we talk about that enough. Working post-pandemic, just after the pandemic, was a traumatic experience in itself. I remember just everybody being so divided on these guidelines are real and these guidelines are fake, and but you have to be the enforcer as somebody who works there, whether you believe it or not. So just telling people all the time that they had to put their masks up, or other customers being their mask is down. It was just a lot. It was a lot. So yeah, we definitely don't talk about that enough, and let's just not talk. Let's just not talk about it. I feel like we don't talk about the pandemic for a reason. Let's keep it that way, actually. But yes, going back to what I was saying. So the world opened back up, and I kind of reverted backwards almost right away, actually. I found myself back in bars as soon as they reopened, and that's actually where I met my husband. Shortly after everything opened back up after the pandemic, we were both at a bar, and that's how we met. So pretty organic love story. And shortly after I met Anthony, so mine and Anthony, that's my husband's name, our relationship went from like 0 to 100 overnight. Like, it was actually intense. He booked the reservation for our first date at the bar the night I met him, and the rest was literally history. We went on that date literally the next week and then spent every minute together after that. And now we're married in a house together, so I guess it all worked out. But I met my husband, and then right after I met my husband, I was introduced to pole dancing as like a sport. And those two things together, meeting Anthony and just being introduced and falling in love with pole dancing, like, both of them changed my world so, so much. And both of them cracked me open in ways that I didn't even know that I needed to be opened. It was actually really intense. My relationship with Anthony it illuminated so many things that I was so ignorant to within myself. I really had a hard time communicating with him. I couldn't articulate my words and my feelings, and now that I can look back and reflect on it, I can see that I was so jaded and so angry from everything that had happened in my past. I had a really hard time trusting men and opening up to men. I think back on it now, and I honestly don't know how our relationship survived. I know that Anthony is an absolute saint for what he did. Not that he's an angel himself, because he definitely had some things to work through, and we worked through them together as a couple, but I know I was really difficult in the beginning. It was really hard because I felt like I had so much love for this person. Like, he was amazing, like, right off the bat, and I couldn't show it. Like, I couldn't, right now, how I'm struggling to find the words is almost like how every single one of our conversations were. Like, he would ask me how I feel about something, and I genuinely couldn't speak sometimes. I felt like words would get caught in my throat, and like, it was really, really hard. I think about that time and the way that we fought. Like, it was really intense for a long time, because I think both of us just had so much to work through. And at the same time as all of this is happening, I'm also going on this pole dance journey. And when we moved into this house almost right away, this is like one of our garages, and I transformed it into a little pole studio. It did not always look this pretty in here, but there was one pole and there was a mirror, and that's all I needed. And I started taking myself on this journey of embodied dancing. And I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I didn't have a term for it, but it really was embodiment in my dance. And I would put on these songs that I knew I had an emotional connection to, that reminded me of something, and I would just let myself move and let myself feel. And like, I would find myself crying sometimes, and then that like morphed into a morning, like every single morning I was on my mat, like no pole, just like dancing and holding myself and crying sometimes, and I was releasing so much. And throughout this this was like a 2-year buildup. Like, I had gotten sick so many times, I had passed out. Like, I really genuinely felt like there was a version of myself that was dying, and it was so hard to like just be. Like, I don't know how, we don't talk about how hard it is to go through these processes of evolving while still being in life. You know, like, you still have to go to work, you still have to talk to your partner, you still have to maintain your relationships and your friendships and do all of these things, but on the inside, like, something feels so off. And that's how I felt. Like, something just felt so off. Like I said, I was physically sick. My skin was like, I had almost no color to me. Like, I was pale, my hair was burnt. Like, every emotion in me, every negative emotion, every trauma, I felt like it was like surfacing, and it needed to come out, and it was trying so hard. And then I think I had the biggest breakthrough right after my engagement to my husband. It was like a week after he had proposed, and I was actually in this studio. Again, it was before it looked like this, so it was dark in here, and there was just this black, like, matte padding, like, on the floor. And I just remember I was literally curled up in a little ball listening to my favorite sad girl album, which is my girl Noah Cyrus. I put on her album and I was just crying, like literally in a ball on the floor in here, crying my eyes out. And when I was thinking about like why, like what's going on here, and it was everything at once. Like I had realized like just how much I had done in my life that I had done out of true self-hatred. All of the drinking, all of the drugs, everything. And I never gave myself a chance to heal from that either. I also should mention that there was, right before I met Anthony, there was another boy in my life that I really felt like I loved, and it just didn't work out. And that in itself was a very traumatic experience. I'll be open, I'll share it. I'll be open and honest. I had loved this person and this person had expressed to me that they had the same feelings, but basically had told me that they could never be with me because I had slept with their friend before I met them. So I really felt like just I felt really worthless and dirty and disgusted. Like, I don't even know if that person knew like the effect that had on me. Like, I felt like, wow, like you could meet somebody that you genuinely care about and you have all of these feelings for and that you love, and like, I'm not good enough for them because I'm dirty, like just because I'm used, because I'm not worthy enough. And that really hurt me, like more than I can even describe, on top of everything else, because I was already feeling those things in other areas of my life. But it was like I had somebody verbally confirm it for me. Like, not only did all of these things happen in my childhood, not only am I different from everybody else, not only do I feel out of place and unworthy, like now I have somebody in front of me telling me that you are almost perfect for me. You're amazing. You're the most perfect person I've ever met, but you're actually not worthy for me. So bye. Like that, oof, that broke my heart. And so I wanted to share that story because I met Anthony truly right after. And I don't think I ever gave myself a chance to like heal from that entire era of my life. Like that whole drinking, the drugs, the boy, the everything, the true low. I thought I was out of it just because I had met Anthony and I started dancing and we moved into this house and like all of these things were happening on the external. But I never went back and like fixed or even addressed what happened on the internal, not even the stuff that had resurfaced from my childhood. And so I'm laying on the floor and I'm crying and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't think I can go through with this engagement. I don't think I belong in this house. I don't want to be at my job. Like, I was going through a true like crisis. I was fighting with one of my best friends at the time. Like, it was a really rough time in my life, and I felt so low and I didn't know what to do. And what I did decide to do completely changed my entire life. I had decided to go inside and to tell Anthony everything. And that sounds so silly. It doesn't sound like anything. I know that was like a big lead up to just a very simple answer, but it was the first time that I had spoken my truth to him or to anybody in that way. Like, I explained exactly what I was feeling. I explained exactly what I needed from him out of our relationship. I explained, what I had went through in my childhood, what I had went through right before I met him. And the most healing part of that entire experience was the compassion and the understanding and the empathy and the respect that I was met with from Anthony. Like, it makes me emotional to even think about it because I wasn't expecting that reaction, and I don't think anybody has ever held space for me in that way to feel safe, which is why I had such a hard time communicating in the first place. I grew up in a household where like being upset or being mad, like it wasn't okay. It made you very ungrateful. It made you selfish. And those are things that I still struggle with. Like, being called selfish to this day guts me. So I didn't expect that at all, and I wasn't, and again, like, that's why I didn't know that that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship, that that's what you're supposed to do as a human being. You're supposed to talk, and you're supposed to express what bothers you, and be honest, and be clear with people. And it was after that conversation with him that my heart just, like, you know that, like, scene in the Grinch where his heart, like, grows out of the frame? Like, that's how I felt. That's what I felt like my heart did. Like, it was like it opened. And from that moment on, like, I was crying at the most beautiful things all the time. And I was able to go deeper in my pole journey. And I did. Like, I really started intentionally, like, drawing out certain emotions. I started going to therapy. Like, all of these things I actively started changing because I knew I wanted to be with Anthony. Like, I want to marry you. Like, I want to live in this house. Like, at the end of the day, this is what I want. I don't know how to articulate it, and I don't know what I want for the rest of my life because that was still so unclear. And now I'm on this journey of movement, and it's taken me places where I couldn't even imagine. Pole dancing opened up so many doors for me emotionally, and now I feel like I just want to extend that forward. And the term embodied movement coach is really calling to me because to me it's about way more than just the fitness piece and the tricks and the skills. Like, to me, it is about healing, and it is about the journey and learning yourself through dance, like embodied movement. And not only through dance, but also through, like, any modality. And my main modalities are pole dance and the gym. And I want to help women in these spaces because we deserve to feel this free and this liberated. And even though it was that conversation with Anthony that I feel like really sparked that moment of freedom and liberation and, like, this new era of me, it wouldn't have been a thing if I wasn't pole dancing. Like, that wouldn't have happened because all of the confidence that I gained, like, during my practices with this sport, and again, just being able to be a little bit more raw and vulnerable in my dancing, like, yes, Anthony created the safe space for me to know it's okay to do this with other people, but it was pole dancing and it was movement and it was trusting myself that made me realize it's okay to even feel within my own body. And that's something that I really wasn't feeling before. Like, I was numb. I didn't want to feel anything. And now I'm feeling, and I'm able to express, and I feel just in love with life. Like, genuinely, I wake up and I'm so happy to be here. And I want the entire world to feel like this. Like, I get so excited about doing these things because I genuinely want everybody to feel the way that I feel because it feels amazing. And life should be amazing. We're meant to be amazing. Yeah, so that's what I have for you today. I hope you're feeling amazing. But I just wanted to share that story because I think it's really important to understand kind of where I came from and some of the struggles that I dealt with. It really wasn't always easy. It definitely wasn't always easy. I was bullied a lot growing up for my teeth, for my skin, for my hair. And then even once I finally, like I said, grew into myself, I had my own insecurities and just, like, feelings of not belonging anywhere. And then you go on this journey of life not feeling like you belong anywhere. And I think because I really internalized that at such a young age, like, I genuinely didn't know where to go. I didn't know what career path to take. I didn't know if I should look for, like, I genuinely just didn't know, and I felt so displaced and just so lost. And finding something, and I say movement because it's important to me, and movement brings healing no matter who you are or what you love. But if you take anything from this video, please let it be this: find something that you're passionate about, because the things that you're passionate about, I truly believe your soul is called to them for a reason, and those things wake up things inside of you, those passions, those wake up things inside of your soul that sparks the healing. And it also just makes it like shines a light on the, like a little light. Like it doesn't show you the entire picture, but it shines a little light on the path that maybe you're supposed to go in. And maybe like for me, like, or somebody who loves pole dancing, maybe you are passionate about pole dancing, maybe you don't want it for your future, but maybe it connects you to it. So that is my story. And my key takeaway for you for today is please, 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 if you do anything, start to focus on one thing in your life that you do for you, that you really love, something that you're passionate about, and go deeper, dig deeper with it. Because I guarantee you there's something on the other side of that that you don't even know it's on the other side. It's something magical is on the other side of that. So go through it, do the work. It gets really hard at one point. It gets really, really hard at one point. Keep going. And that's all I have for you today. So like I said, I just wanted to share my story a little bit, explain really why we're here, and help you get to know me a little bit. I want to be more open. I want to be more raw. I want to be myself. I want to be my authentic self on this channel. That's like literally what all of my content is about, like finally being yourself. And so I want to be myself on here. I want you to be yourself, and that's it. That's all we're doing today. I hope you guys have the most wonderful day. I'm sending you all the best energy and lots of love. I'll speak to you next time.